Today we are counting down the most calculated acts of revenge in all of history. Number 1. Queen Aethelflaed and the Northern Raiders. We begin with a story that proves patience and intelligence always beat brute strength. It is the year 902, and a powerful Anglo-Saxon queen named Aethelflaed rules central England. To her north live the Vaeringer clans, a ruthless group of raiders who constantly push boundaries. For years they raided border villages, stole livestock, and kidnapped local farmers for ransom. Aethelflaed always responded diplomatically, sending grain and silver to keep the peace alive. The clan chieftain Ragnar grew arrogant and decided diplomacy was just weakness he could exploit. One autumn he crossed deep into her territory and burned 3 of her most sacred towns. He then sent a messenger demanding she surrender half her kingdom or face total destruction. What Ragnar did not know was that Aethelflaed had been quietly building something for years. She had secretly trained a network of female spies embedded in every major northern settlement. These women posed as traders, weavers, and traveling healers trusted by everyone around them. When Ragnar sent his victory messenger, Aethelflaed smiled and invited the messenger to dinner. She treated him like royalty, fed him well, and sent him home with generous gifts. Ragnar laughed and told his men the queen was weak and completely terrified of his power. He had no idea that dinner conversation had revealed the exact location of his hidden war camp. 3 weeks later, Aethelflaed moved her forces quietly through routes only her spies had mapped. They surrounded Ragnar's camp from 4 directions before a single lookout could raise an alarm. By morning, Ragnar's entire raiding force was captured without a single Anglo-Saxon soldier dying. Aethelflaed stood before Ragnar and calmly listed every village he had burned over 20 years. She did not execute him, but instead put him to work rebuilding every settlement he had destroyed. Ragnar spent the rest of his life in labor under the watchful eyes of the very people he terrorized. And the northern clans never crossed her border again for the remaining decades of her reign. Number 2. The Merchant of Carthage. This next story involves a man so patient with his revenge that even his enemies admired him. In 210 BCE, a prosperous Carthaginian merchant named Hanno controlled the busiest trade routes in Africa. He had built his empire over 30 years through honesty, risk, and an extraordinary memory. One season, a Roman business partner named Quintus secretly duplicated Hanno's shipping contracts. Quintus bribed port officials and rerouted an entire season of Hanno's cargo under his own name. The fraud wiped out 2 years of Hanno's savings and destroyed his credit among fellow merchants. Quintus then spread rumors that Hanno was incompetent, further poisoning his already damaged reputation. Hanno lost his warehouse lease, his crew, and nearly his home within a single devastating year. Rather than confronting Quintus directly, Hanno disappeared from Carthage entirely for 18 months. During that time, he quietly traveled to every city where Quintus had existing business partners. In each city, he introduced himself as a financial advisor, specializing in detecting trade fraud. He spent months carefully documenting every shady deal Quintus had ever made with local merchants. He collected signed statements, ledger discrepancies, and testimony from cheated sailors and dock workers. When Hanno finally returned to Carthage, he did not go to the market or the courts first. He went straight to the Roman Senate's Trade Oversight Council with a leather satchel of evidence. The case he presented was so thorough and so damning that the council had no choice to act. Quintus was stripped of his trading license, fined heavily, and banned from every port in the region. Every business partner Quintus had quietly cut ties before the scandal even became fully public. Hanno used his settlement money to reopen his warehouse and hire back his original, experienced crew. Within 3 years, Hanno was more successful than he had ever been before the betrayal happened. Quintus spent his final years doing manual labor on a fishing boat owned by one of Hanno's friends. Number 3. The disgraced general of the Tang Dynasty. We move now to ancient China and a story of loyalty, betrayal, and extraordinary delayed vengeance. In 710 CE, a brilliant military commander named Wei Zhong served the emperor with total dedication. He had repelled 3 separate invasions and expanded the empire's border by hundreds of miles. His success made a court official named Lord Pei extremely jealous of his growing influence. Pei spent years collecting small rumors and half-truths about Wei Zhong's personal conduct and loyalty. He compiled them into a formal accusation and delivered it personally to the aging emperor's ear. The emperor, weakened by illness and surrounded by manipulative advisors, believed every single word. Wei Zhong was stripped of rank, publicly shamed at court, and exiled to a remote western province. His family lost their land grants, and his name was officially erased from imperial military records. Lord Pei celebrated by immediately claiming Wei Zhong's old military command and all its privileges. But Pei was a politician, not a soldier, and the border he inherited quickly began to collapse. Meanwhile, in exile, Wei Zhong did not sit idle or spend his days drowning in bitterness. He befriended local governors, trained regional militia, and quietly studied every one of Pei's decisions. Each poor military choice Pei made was carefully noted and documented by people loyal to Wei Zhong. When a major northern invasion threatened to overwhelm Pei's incompetent defenses 2 years later, the new young emperor had no good options left and reluctantly sent word to the western province. Wei Zhong returned to the capital and within 40 days had completely reversed the military situation. He presented his victory to the emperor, along with a full documented record of Lord Pei's corruption. Pei was removed from court, tried for falsifying the original accusations, and sentenced to permanent exile. Wei Zhong was officially reinstated, and his name was restored to every military record in the empire. He also quietly ensured that every family member of Pei lost the land grants they had stolen. Wei Zhong lived another 20 years serving the empire and never once boasted about what he had done. Number 4. The warlord who lost everything to a goat tax. Our final story shows that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you completely underestimate. In 1387, a minor Central Asian warlord named Tok Timur controlled a small but wealthy mountain valley. The valley sat at a crossroads between 2 major trade routes and generated enormous annual revenue. A neighboring chieftain named Baruun had long wanted the valley but lacked the military strength to take it. Tok Timur knew this and spent years mocking Baruun publicly at regional meetings and tribal councils. He once forced Baruun to pay an insulting tax of 3 goats simply to pass through his territory. Baruun paid the goats without argument, bowed politely, and rode home without a single visible reaction. Everyone in the region laughed at Baruun and assumed he was simply too weak to ever retaliate. What no one knew was that Baruun had spent those humiliating years building a very different kind of power. He had quietly negotiated alliance agreements with 7 smaller tribes spread across the surrounding mountains. He offered them fair trade terms, military protection, and something Tok Timur never offered: respect. Each tribe agreed to provide fighters when called, asking nothing more than honest treatment in return. Baruun also hired former merchants to study every road, seasonal pass, and water source in the valley. He learned exactly when Toktamor's forces rotated positions and which guards were most easily distracted. On the night of the first heavy autumn snowstorm, Baruun made his move with calm, methodical precision. His allied tribes sealed every exit from the valley before Toktamor's soldiers realized anything was wrong. By sunrise, Toktamor's forces were completely surrounded, with no escape route and no outside help coming. Toktamor rode out personally, expecting to negotiate, and was instead handed a very simple written message. The message read, 3 goats, plus interest, collected now across your entire former territory. Baruun absorbed the valley without destroying it, kept all the existing trade relationships intact, and gave every family that had suffered under Toktamor's rule a permanent reduction in their taxes. Toktamor was escorted out of the valley with nothing but his horse and a single day of supplies. He spent years trying to reclaim influence, but no tribe would ally with the man Baruun had humiliated. The lesson all 4 of these stories share is simple. Underestimate your enemy and you will regret it.